Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day as well as end of week recap, market recap. So, as always, on Fridays, what I like to do is kick back and open up a nice. No, that's something different. What I like to do, which I'll be doing a little bit later, some of that, but just recap the week's performance and just kind of talk about some of the themes that were in play this week. Talk about a few trades, of course, to the downside, upside, whatever worked, whatever depends on the week. This was a particularly good week in terms of, very slim breadth, but, kind of consistent areas that have been performing. So we will recap a lot of that. First things first, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Also, you can find more about Tribeca Trade Group at tribecatradegroup.com. If you're looking to be a member, that is the best place to go. Also, you can also read our Substacks, but you also have to sign up for that. There's a 7-day free trial. You could go to ttgtrading.substack.com. So, wow, that's a lot of information for you, but that's where you can go to get more information, because as always, when we do these end of day recaps, they're basically, recaps of some of the action, trade ideas and so forth. Those are fluid throughout the trading session, and, they're presented to members first thing in the morning, as many of the trade ideas that I come up with are from, researching charts after hours. So let's go through the raw numbers really quickly, and then we'll talk about the week. But, like, like it's been doing all week long, and basically most of the month, except for the first week, the Qs have been outperforming, and they turned at a huge number today, up 2%. SPYs joined in there too, up 1.2%. And even the small caps got into the game a little bit today. They were up 1% today, just under. Otherwise, the sell would be highlighted, but we can maybe say close enough because we really haven't seen the smalls get involved in the rally. But today's rally kind of just took everything up, and it was a little bit similar to yesterday, where you had a little bit of shake and bake, and then the afternoon, midday to afternoon was pretty darn strong. One thing that was a little bit different today, which I think helped, if you watched my video yesterday, I've been adamant, talking about what bonds have been doing and what the dollar has been doing. Well, bonds were a little bit shaky there. They went red for the day, and that's where things got a little bit shaky, particularly on the small cap side. You could pick up right away. Like, there's no major questions involved. When we talk about when interest rates go higher, right? When you see TLT go down, obviously that's an inverted relationship with what yields are doing. But as soon as that happens, as soon as TLT starts going down, those areas like the small caps, they get hit the hardest. The clean energy names, they get hit the hardest. And those areas have really gotten taken, I want to say, to the woodshed this year. They've been down a lot. You could see the clean energy PBW again is down 23% year to date. I mean, these are like big numbers considering that we're just a few weeks in, and it just shows you that you have to be in the right areas of the market. And what helps with that, of course, is trend following. Having a trend following understanding, knowing that you don't want to be in downtrending charts. You want to be in the ones that are moving up and to the right, and of course, look for names that are pulling back into the moving averages or into support while in uptrends, right? Those are the areas, those are the things we want to buy, right? We don't want to mess with the areas that continue to make lower highs and lower lows, and that's what you have going on with several areas of the market. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the weekly performance, but what can you say about the semis? Up another 3.8%, a big surprise for SMCI, which I think I went over a little bit in yesterday's end of day video. That happened at the end of the day. But so I want to try to use TradingView a little bit. So we'll get to SMCI, but I should go through the indices first. But I mean, that looks pretty neat, doesn't it? In terms of first of all, the value, the MarketWebs value areas being on TradingView, but just that breakout, a little bit of hesitation there. going back to where we were on the 11th and 12th, we kind of tagged that top of value, but weren't ready. We made a higher low here, and then we moved right through here. So, very clean move here. We could, same thing with the 1 hour value area. That's why these things are important, right? When you look at, we could just go through one or two of these, I guess, but it'll just take me a minute to get the formatting done here. But right, that's why like these things are kind of sticky, right? Once we're in trying to break inside value, right? There's always this little hesitation at the bottom of value. Notice that we broke through the top of value this morning, and then we did this little back check, right? Throughout the day, this was, I think, around midday, right? We kind of came in and retested, right? And this is another way to use the value areas for a trade, right? A breakout, a retest, and then boom, right? But you could see how much easier it is once you don't have this resistance, right? This mess. Then then we can really kind of get going, right? And here's what the Qs was just a bit easier, right? And this had a little bit of a back test in here too, earlier in the week. But this is the 1 hour chart. We came in here, we found some support. This was the weakest area, the weakest time of this week, right? But we held on here quite nicely, broke through briefly, and then ever since then it was basically just up and to the right after this little retest, right? A little bit of an inside move here, and really impressive, right? And then if we look at this, of course, on the daily chart. Let's see, did I bring the right thing up here? Yeah, I guess I did here. I just have to reformat this. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty clean move. Breaking out to new highs. Closed just above there. Again, we talked about that in yesterday's video, that we had our levels to watch for 12-13, and off to the races to the upside. I can bring up IWM too, even though I'm not really doing anything here. Still, I'm watching. Maybe this will continue to bounce away from here, but just a different picture, right? This is range bound. I think that this value area is just very wide too. Sometimes when you have a value area for a period, right? This is for the month of January. When it's this wide, sometimes you do get kind of a choppy type of month, right? And then once you have a more normal sized value area, then you can kind of begin to kind of move a little bit differently. But that's what we have there. Also, just one look at bonds, because I think that this is important once you start to look at, do I have we could look at the weekly value area on here. I'm not sure why it's not showing up right this second. It should show up on this, but that's okay. It might just have a little bit of a bug, but take a look at that, right? So I tweeted this out earlier today, and I was talking about the value area for the year, right? And that's what we're looking at when we're looking at the weekly chart. I mean, that's a pretty good kick save. It'll be too easy just because we did stop there right at the bottom of value, which I view as a very good sign. When I tweeted this out earlier, we were through the bottom of value, but for now we're holding it. So I think that's going to be very interesting for next week. Can we continue to hold in here, right? So that's just like by the skin of its teeth, holding on to that bottom of value value area for the year. So that'll be a must watch for next week. Right, because I know that if we get more volatility in bonds, it will translate, especially to things like the small caps as we went over. So stock of the day. Well, I feel like there's a few stocks of the day today, but no doubt it was this SMCI. Let me just move to the back to the weekly chart here. Or excuse me, sorry, I'm going to make mistakes in this video a lot because it's been a long week, and did a lot of trading this week. But yeah, I mean, look at the volume today on the breakout. I spent a lot of time. We have Q&A at Tribeca Trade Group on Fridays at 1 o'clock, and I really, we talked about a couple different things. We talked about getting rid of losers and cutting out of trades. Even if you establish them during the day, and you lose the trigger that you were looking at, intraday, just get out of the trade. Sometimes when you do those types of things, you could really save yourself. And I'll talk about, Celsius is one of those names, and I'll give you the example in just a second. But let's talk about SMCI first. Sorry, when you've got this many movers this week, your brain tends to and thought process tends to jump around. But so yes, the breakout in this. So what I find kind of interesting about this was, of course, they had great numbers that brought the stock up, but this has been a tough stock over the last few months. In fact, like I just stopped trading it. Because it just got too tricky. Whenever something gets a little bit too tricky, I just kind of stay away from it and wait for things to improve, whether it be an earnings report, and that's going to be the case for a lot of names, now that we're just kind of starting earnings season. We haven't had any of the real big companies report, other than the banks and a UNH in there. But you are going to find your potential leaders for the next quarter based on, names that have standout earnings. And a lot of times what will happen is the institutions will basically they'll have to start accumulating a name based on those earnings results. They're, because it really changes the whole narrative of a stock. It changes the story of the stock, and funds want to get involved. Funds and retail wants to get involved in a story that looks like, where growth is accelerating, right? And that's a situation here. So I am long a little bit of this. I was not long yesterday, except I do have a position. Sorry. So I manage two portfolios. One is my trading account, which I speak about most of which in these videos. And the other one is the TTG trend portfolio. And I've had a position in SMCI for probably a couple years now at this point. Not a big position, a little position in SMCI. But in my trading account, yeah, I really haven't done much with this because it just got too difficult. It wasn't behaving as well as, the rest of the semiconductors and NVIDIA and AMD. So, there was no reason to really get involved in this stock for now, and I've seen it one day, it was down like 4% on no news. And meanwhile, the rest of the semis were going up. So, that's okay. If you weren't involved in trading, that's okay, because I know everybody says, oh my God, I had it at this point, or I traded it yesterday or a couple weeks ago and I don't have it anymore. Geez, I should have held on to it. Okay, well, that's fine for your long-term account. But if you're a trader, you probably weren't in this thing. But so the main question is, well, where is it going now? And, I actually bought a little bit of a position. We talked about how to kind of play this name on the break. My thought process is when a name is moving like this, when it's up 20, 30%, I'm not going to get in big because it's a little bit too risky and it's got a lot of momentum. But you kind of have to have a little bit of a trading hunch in here. And the trading hunch is that this thing has been going sideways and is a big break of the range. So I think this thing continues to go higher. Do I think it goes up, on Monday too? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think if it comes in a little bit, right? And my plan was to buy a little bit more. I bought some at, where did I buy some today? I bought some today at 403, right? And probably people were like, oh geez, that's crazy. But you have to have a plan. And my plan was, if it comes down to about 390, I'll buy some more. But you got to start somewhere. And it's the same thing with NVIDIA, right? If you look at what NVIDIA did, right? And we'll look at that chart next as a comparison, because this is not a perfect looking chart, right? But this also had this sideways type pattern to it after a big move, right? It went into digestion for about 6 months, right? And then it broke higher. But if you chased it on the first day, and again, different looking candles, but if you chased it on the first day of the breakout of the value area, you are quite happy that you did so, right? And that's when I went long in NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, while I never got a huge position on, because I didn't know, that it was going to do that type of thing. I did add to it in little spots, and I actually added to it this week. On the one day that we got the dip, which was in here, I went ahead and added to it. And that's the thing, that if you're in a name and you're taking some profits along the way, you leave yourself that dry powder so that you can add, in a name that you have conviction in, which I had conviction in NVIDIA because I thought it was a really clean break after a few months of consolidation. So these patterns, these patterns repeat. In the Q&A session today, I was talking about how Microsoft, about going back more than 10 years ago at this point. But Microsoft, if you traded for a while, then you know this story. But Microsoft traded between like $22 and $29 for about 5 years. And then, so that's really a different kind of consolidation, much longer sideways. But once it broke that range of and it got above the 28, 29, $30 threshold, it never looked back after that. So, again, that's a much longer sideways pattern, but it's the same kind of concept. When you're going sideways like this and you break the range, it's just a technical break. All right. So very nice. And of course, AMD had a great week too. There's multiple winners that happened in this group. I mean, just phenomenal that this thing was up another 11%. If we go up and down this group, Broadcom, right, which was stellar for, I caught this trade. Then we went sideways, kind of broke in a little bit, and look at it, a really nice price target raised by Goldman today. A few other names, ARM, which I got long. I've been long since the break all the way back in here, and have been in and out of it a couple times in here. But this was nice to see. This was a big gain today. Why don't I see the percentage change here? Oh, there we go. This was up about 5.8% today. So really strong name there. I also like Cadence a lot too. Look at the break of the value area. Once that, some of these charts I have memorized, but look at the break of the value area. Same thing, breaking the range, very, very strong. So overall, when you look at the group, right, this was our, I put this out a couple days ago, thinking that this was going to be very interesting if the semis could break out here. And, I can go through about like 5, 6, 7 more charts of the semis, but overall, you've got your market leader for now. Right, Qualcomm had the last one I'll talk about is Qualcomm, because it just doesn't get enough attention, but that was a nice breakout. It did take out a VPOC today, by the way. But so yeah, I mean, we could talk about a few other names, Rambus and so on and so forth, but I got to move on from this group. But this is where we've got a leadership. But I went long some GE. I have some slower moving things in my portfolio. This worked pretty well as well today. Nice little dip here, and moving higher. One name I'm watching next week is Affirm. Right, it's been one of those names that it's been putting everybody to sleep a little bit. It tried to turn here and didn't have enough strength and kind of fell back down. Maybe not really a signal yet. And again, it may not be this month. It's a pretty, like we looked at IWM, it's a pretty big value area, right? And maybe next month might be a better opportunity for it. Maybe it's just going to digest this month, but I do like the turn. I wouldn't mind having something in here. Here's how our watch list, which I provide members every week. Also notice how it's mark to market with Bloomberg API, so it gives you data. But yeah, I mean, the AMD was up 15% from the trigger, right? All the triggers are based on that, based on the MarketWebs value areas. So really nicely. Datadog had some nice continuation. Datadog didn't have the greatest candle yesterday, but the important thing was it held the value area. I think this is going to this 131 level. That's personally where I would be a seller, right? And that's, if I can get that, that's the VPOC from this value area over here. Other names on the watch list that up and down we can go through. AMR, a coal name, people, of course, like the coal names get so little attention. I know what's his Lawrence McDonald, I think, has been talking about coal names for a couple of years now. He's been spot on with this group. But this look at it, it's not a AI stock, it's a coal stock. I think we talked about those for a minute yesterday too. Marvell, That's another semi to talk about. I'll spare you with that one. You know, what besides what was interesting today too was the Dell move, you know, and I guess they make a similar product, or they have a little bit of exposure to servers and things like that. And Dell had a huge day today. I think VRT also does a little bit of that work too. Right, and VRT had a really nice breakout today too. This has been a nice stock. It's been a little bit tough from time to time, but it has certainly resolved itself in the right direction. But that also goes with IBM, right? Which I mean had a really nice week for IBM. You know, that's again, how many times can I say impressive? But notice this is heading towards that VPOC up there, which again at VPOCs I'm usually taking profits. ESTC, which I got involved in that name this week too. That worked well. There's your SMCI. So even though it was up 36%, 17% from the trigger. Applied Materials, which we added. One other name that probably you may not have heard of before. I like new names. This is Onto, right? This is another like a semi device type name. Just impressive. This thing, we looked at this. Shame on me for not taking this trade, because we looked at this on the break into the value area. It triggered the 80% rule, and it did go all the way through very quickly to the value area. So, you know, maybe a new name for you to put on your radar. And also one name that didn't get involved, that I didn't have on the watch list, but I started watching it yesterday, which was PayPal. You could see I've got some notes on here, right? So PayPal is a very interesting, you know, I've been so negative on this stock, but the whole key is to change your opinion when things change. And this PayPal has been a complete garbage stock, right? And then I know a lot of people have been kind of watching this thing, but here is your break all the way back in here, the 200-day moving average, right? There has been no reason other than, you know, a couple here and there to get involved in this name until maybe today. Because you really haven't had much, you know, like I said, you had a false move here, so that's okay. If you tried it here and if you got faked out, no problem. If you tried it here and you got faked out, okay, I get it, right? And I think that was on earnings where it fell back down. Now it's got a chance, right? And I'm long, so I'm long. I took one target on this thing today, and ultimately I'm looking for a move to up to 72, and then on the weekly chart too. Weekly chart, right? I'm looking for the move up to 77, right? Also note too, so just kind of get this so you could see it. Notice how it's in value for the year and just at the bottom of value. So I would be looking for a move all the way to the top of value. So that's what I think that's a good percentage move, right? And that's what I would be looking for PayPal. I mentioned that I would go through the weekly performance. I'll just bring this up for you, just some observations. Yeah, talk about the haves and the have-nots. Amazing. Semis, tech, communications, XLC, which covers both Google and Meta. But outside of that, you know, telecom did well. You know, I actually got long some T-Mobile this week, which worked. There wasn't much performance outside of those groups. So if you were in those groups, and probably a lot of retail traders were, you know, awesome performance, but there's not a lot of outside of those groups. Solar, clean energy, Chinese internet names, the cryptos, gold miners, biotech, utilities, oil and gas names, steel names, right? All of these areas got hit hard this week. And then, of course, you know, looking at the international, China was down 5% this week. So, you know, some very interesting moves this week. Do I think that this momentum continues into next week? No. You know, I think part of this had to do with, you know, monthly options expiration, because it did cover the leaps options. But I think there's going to be a lot of nice setups, and, you know, a move like SMCI, it gets people really interested. So I think that there will continue to be trading opportunities, but I don't think this market's going to be a layup type market. I think you're going to get plenty more twists and turns as the month goes on. Guys, have a great weekend, and check out TribecaTradeGroup.com if you want more information. Again, have a great weekend.